This screencast is on how to do CSS image replacement. It's going to go through first what it is, and then I'm going to stop and do the second part on how to do it, so that if you just want to see how to do it, you can just go back and watch the second one again. So basically, it's the process of replacing text in a title with an image that has the exact same text in it. And so this is sort of an example here, where this is the normal HTML text that we might have here in our title, and instead we're going to replace it with this text here that's the same text, but it's in a different font or whatever, and so forth. And that text is actually an image, and even further, it's actually a background image. One thing is that the HTML in both examples doesn't need to change, although sometimes there's slight changes we have to do to it. But basically, the H1 element, which in this case is what's determining that title, stays as an H1 element. So it's not putting an IMG element in as an image for it. So it doesn't mean also that you don't have to style that text with cascading style sheets. You still want to style the font family, the font size, the color, and so forth, in case there's someone who doesn't have images turned on, or they're not using CSS. Well, I guess they're not using CSS, you wouldn't style it, but just in case you want to do this, there may also be people who use certain browsers who won't be able to show it in the same way. So let's look a little bit more into why you would want to use it then. So one of the problems is that users can only see the fonts they have installed on their computers. So when you do your font family and you put all those fonts in there, one of the reasons you do more than one font is that you're saying, well, this is the font I really want to use, but if they don't have that, let's use this other font. If they don't have that, we'll use a generic font, and so forth. However, sometimes you really do want them to see the font that you want them to see. The other one is, as I said before, when you just use an image element, right? So when you use the IMG element, then now you have that instead of text, and so it's not searchable, selectable, and also it means with that if someone's using a screen reader, it's not going to be able to read it in the same way. So with image replacement, you get both the text, because you still have the H element in there, and the content is searchable, indexed by search engines, and readable, and also the user sees the font that you want them to see. But it's not a perfect world. So there's a number of reasons not to use it. And one is if they have images turned off in their browser, they won't be able to see your image that you have. Not many people browse like that, but it is a concern. Depending on the technique you use, people using screen readers may not have the text read to them properly. So you have to be careful. And there are a number of different techniques. We're only going to look at one today, but there's a number of different sort of CSS styles you can use to do this. The other one is you have to create separate images for each title you'll be replacing. That's one of the reasons that this technique should only be used for titles and not paragraph text. There's some other ones, but it does mean that if you have 20 titles in your page, then you got to go and create 20 images in Photoshop or wherever. And if you want to change the font or change the color, it can be a little bit of a pain now, because you got to redo those 20 images. You also have to write CSS to do the replacement for all the titles. So now that you have to do a little bit of extra CSS to write it. And depending on the technique you use, you may need to add extra divs or spans to your HTML, which it's called semantically meaningless markup, is that the span or the div has nothing to do with the content on it. Semantics is about meaning. So the problem with adding some of this stuff is that you get this markup that doesn't have anything to do with the content, it's just for styling purposes. And also using images means more data to download for the page, because now people, in addition to your text, have to download an image to go along with it. So there are some reasons not to use it, but when you want the font that you want, it's a good one to use. So oftentimes you'll find people using this in like the main title of their page, or a certain one of the titles, not necessarily all the titles down through H6. So this is going to be some basic theories of how you use it, and then we're going to stop and do a second one, which is the actual step-by-step. So the basic idea is that you use CSS to hide the text in the title, and then you add a background image that has the text in the font that you want. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. To hide the text, you can set the display to none on the text. You can set the indent to a negative or a positive, really large number, so it essentially indents the text off the screen. Some people add a span tag and add the background image in a way that's that's positioned on top of the text, and so forth. So there's a lot of different ways. And you can visit this page here at Mezzo Blue, down here. There's the page. And this has a lot of different techniques listed here. So classic FIR, and what they do is they show you a little bit of code. Here's the HTML you need, and here's the CSS that you need. But they also talk about some of the issues. So it won't show up if they have images off, CSS on. That means if for some reason someone's browsing and their browser they've set to say don't show any images, but use CSS, that would be a problem. And so there's a number, as you see, of different methods here. Through it, and each one, what you're seeing here with the blue, where it says revised image replacement, shows you what it would look like. And there are methods too that do different things. So there are a number of ones here. I'm not going to go through all of them. The one that we're going to look at in the next piece is this one here, the FARC Revisited. Mainly because the only thing you have to add is make sure you have some kind of ID on the header, and that's all you have to add to your HTML. And then it's a relatively simple CSS as well. It doesn't break an IE5, so it's a relatively robust method. It still suffers from the problem if someone's browsing with images turned off and CSS turned on. So that's it for the theory on how to do it. The next one will be step by step in actually doing it.